All right, so I'm going to use a demo here at the end of assignment 3 to just talk about finishing it up and submitting it and some of the decisions we make. Because we are making all of our decisions in terms of formal qualities of composition, lighting, focus, and color based on someone else's work. But at some point we want to think back and realize what that does to the subject matter that we're shooting and how it relates to them. So here I've gone a few steps, and I've gone all the way from this, my first exposure, like that, and I've brought it up all the way to this level, which is really about the texture of the skin, and it's really about really showcasing all of the creases, especially around the eyes and all those focus pools. And it takes out the background so much. It goes to solid black in the background that you don't even see anything else. So one thing I did, just in basics, besides just the dodging and burning that we've gone through in previous assignments, I did go ahead and I replaced the background with a black layer. You know, just doing a simple outline around the head and then filling that in on a new layer with black so that it frames the face underneath like that. And then I have to use a soft eraser to kind of blend that shadow in. So that's one kind of extreme step I had to make. In general, otherwise, I simply took the original photo and I took a lot of that saturation out. And I dodged and burned. I especially dodged on this cheek to get more light there. And I darkened a whole lot on this side of the face, right, to match this really strong side lining, really strong contrast. And then I softened the focus on the nose. You'll see it could even probably go a little bit softer if I wanted it to, by Gaussian blurring it. And then there's one other step. If you'll notice, my contrast here, everything is in my exposure. But you don't see every pore in the skin as sharply as you do in my reference here, where everything's really sharp and defined. And that's a method called high pass filtering that shouldn't be confused with sharpening your focus, because the computer is not able to sharpen focus or add detail, but it can kind of map a contrast texture to the surface textures that you have in your shot. And so what I did was I took this layer that's somewhat desaturated and I ran it through what's called a high pass filter. And I have that in actions for you under Carl's Customized Effects. It's called Max Texture High Pass Filter. And I played it, and what it does is it's very simple. It just does this step, which is setting high pass at a 10 pixel radius. And you are welcome to use that if you think you need just that extra level of mapping the texture. But look at the difference there in the texture on the pores of the skin. It's artificially exaggerated, and that's what high pass does. And very often it's used in portraits. So what I then take is I take that picture from my action, I copy all of it, and then I paste it into my photo. And then I use all my dodging and burning and I blend that in on top of it. You know, maybe to about that level. I can also take this and I can use the blur tool directly to blur out This is like Gaussian blur, but I can blur out the tip of the nose with the blur tool. You can use it just like dodge and burn with strength, but I tend to use the blur tool at 100% strength because it goes kind of slow, actually. And we'll see that difference. And I don't need to blur the side of his ear because that's already blurred from my exposure, but the blur tool could work there as well. Now the one thing I'm questioning is I really like the shape of my subject matter's head here. And it looks a little odd to me when it gets completely blackened out. So I might decide for my photo, maybe I'm just going to take that black down a little bit. So it's close, but not exactly that same strength. And then once you're happy with everything, be sure to look at the edges. What you can do for final retouching is to hold down Option, go on the very top layer, go to Layer, and then Merge Visible. And that will give you a 100% layer on the top. That's everything together in one place. So then I can just do very subtle dodging and burning, very subtle clone stamping if I need to do that kind of retouching, which is where you sample from one part of your photo and you paint it into another part, like so. We don't do any painting in this class, but we do clone stamping because it's using the exposures of the photo. And you can set it at different opacities, different strengths, and you target an area. So for instance, if I wanted to get rid of that dark spot, I would target somewhere in the skin that has no dark spot, and then I would just paint right over it. And if I find certain things distracting in the overall picture that gets away from what I'm looking for here, it's a nice tool to use. A faster tool for that is called the Spot Healing Brush. And this is made specifically for kind of skin blemishes, things like that. And you just use it, you set its side, and then you just paint a dot, and then it will automatically sample from around and fill it in. And it's really good if there's dust on your frame, or if there's things that just don't fit. Now, it can get overused, and you don't want to overuse it. And now that I have it all flattened into one layer, it's really easy to see how far I've taken this photo in processing, right? But I can also use those layers and blend them together a little bit. And for my taste, this is actually a better photo than this, you know. And that's why I'm going to save it as a Photoshop file. To me, this is about the right level of lights and darks and color. It's not as extreme as this one. And maybe this is what I'd want to turn in. Or this is the photo I would like to give to my subject, you know. So don't lose your own voice entirely in this project, but realize what it takes to match. All right, so I've done the best I can. I'm going to save it. Before I crop it, save it as a PSD, you know, my same Carl assignment 3. Remember to always put your name in there. I'll save it to the desktop just so you can see that there. The next step, I'm going to crop it down using my guides and using the cropping that I had referenced before in my cropping mask layer at the top there. Again, you can see how far it's come. Yeah, I think I actually might have you turn this in a little bit differently because that might be fun. So I can show you the transformation here just by playing with opacity. So we went from this exposure to this final processing. And then once it's cropped, you're going to save it as a JPEG. So don't save it as a PSD after it's cropped because you don't want to lose all that information. So save as a JPEG to the desktop. Go ahead and make it the highest quality you can as long as it's not over 5 megabytes. And you'll see those two files. One you want to mark green, the PSD you want to mark green because that's what you'll go back to make improvements. And the one you want to submit, you want to mark orange. Okay? But this might be a fun way to do it because the other photo you're going to submit is your reference inspiration. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up in Photoshop. And you want to make sure that that's saved as a JPEG as well. And I'll call this, Carl reference photo. Just because it's good to have your name to everything that you're turning in. Saved as a JPEG to the desktop. And I'm going to make this an option for you because I've never done it before. I think it would work well. And I'll usually mark my reference photos or my inspiration photos that are important to the process with yellow. So these are the three things you would turn in this order. Oh, actually, no, I've left one out. Sorry. Go back to my JPEG. Sorry, go back to my Photoshop file. And turn on the original exposure, but cropped. Remember, we did that at the very beginning. So it's your original exposure as cropped as it could be, right? And say file save as, and you're going to call this your name, and then your raw exposure cropped. And save that as a JPEG. To the desktop. And now this is the new thing that might be fun to do. Working from your cropped raw exposure, we are going to flatten that. And just like assignments 1 and 2, we are going to grow the space around it. And because mine is fairly square, I am going to grow the space by basically quadrupling its width and tripling its height. So let's see, and I can overshoot it, that's fine. So 8 times 4 is 32, so I'll do 32 width and doubling its height, so basically 14.5 tall. The extension color I want is white. And because I started with this photo, that's going to be the photo that's in the middle. And you'll see my guides are there. Then I'm going to turn on my grid, and it's not going to match all of ours because we all have different format photos. But I want an even spacing on each side, and then I'm going to put in my other photos. So I'm going to put in my inspiration to the left, and I'm going to shrink it down